Dr. Dokun Adedeji is the former Director General of Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry, CADAM, a faith-based NGO that caters for the treatment and rehabilitation of drug addicts. He is a medical doctor and he has been also a prolific writer. He transitioned as a medical doctor into a writer, a poet, and transformational public speaker. He's a deeply committed and passionate Nigerian with a heart for touching lives. He has an uncanny understanding of the workings of the human mind. Trained at the prestigious University of Ife, now called Obafemi Awolowo University, as a medical doctor. His work experience traverses diverse sectors of the economy in equally diverse. He has also served as a different intricate positions in Nigeria. He was a senior medical officer with First Foundation Medical Center in Lagos before joining Cadbury Nigeria PLC. And he later became the award-winning head of HR department of Cadbury Nigeria until he voluntarily retired in 2010. He was a former consultant to the federal government SurePay program. Dr. Adedeji consults for corporate bodies and organizations in the medical and human resources field. Dr. Adedeji's passion for humanity is revealed in his numerous not-for-profit services to various segments of the society that are less privileged. He serves as a resource person to NECA and other such organizations. In 2022, he won the Global Chairman's Award for the employee community involvement in recognition of his effort as the coordinator of CADAM. He was also nominated as one of the torch bearers of the Queen's Baton during the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. He was also nominated alongside CADAM for a United Nations award. He served as the national coordinator for this CADAM NGO for about 15 years. Like I've said before, he is a prolific writer. He was a joint columnist with Dr. Olaokun Soyinka for This Day newspapers. He contributes articles and comments and magazines, current affairs and professional, and has published literary works to his credit. He's a contributor to the book of poetry that was done in honor of Dr. Christopher Okibo. In 2008, he went on to publish his book of poetry, Mind Trials, and he has two other books that he's working on. The member of the Ikoyi Club, 1938, is married to Olufolakemi, and they have a lovely daughter, Anolu Akiton. He's an avid footballer, a Manchester United fan, and a member of his school football team. He is a motivational speaker and has been invited to many functions, and he has delivered keynote addresses on various topics. He actively mentors several young men and women and is a committed philanthropist. He used the forum of his book launch to raise money for a physically challenged, talented young lady. Before we bring him out, I want to remind you, like, before we had a session on mental health for leaders. That was about 2 years ago. And Dr. Dokun Adedeji today will be telling us about what happens both in the home, in the workplace, the church, and virtually everywhere you are. So I will stop sharing this screen and put up Dr. Adedokun's slides.
Thank you for inviting me to be at this meeting and for the opportunity to share with my colleagues and generally across the world. This is what you want me to speak to. So next slide, please. Right. Until about 1940, people did not, the definition of health was just too rather simple, and it used to be the absence of disease or infirmity. But it was the 1940 WHO now defines health as a state of complete physical, social, and mental well-being of an individual, and not just merely the absence of disease and infirmity. By the time we go into the discussion today, it will be clear to us what the mental is. And I must stress, and I must thank Deumi for picking this topic, because for us in Nigeria, we are entering the phase almost too late, when other nations, other entities. Is everyone hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. Next slide, please. Next slide. Aha. I like to stress this because if you look at the Venn diagram, we're all familiar with Venn diagram, and this represents the state, the position of normalcy. What we call normalcy, the state of individual health that it should be, the confluence of both the physical, the social, and the mental. The shaded portion shows exactly what it should be like. That is where the normal person should be in terms of normality. But many of us are not to there. But as we go on, I will explain this. Next slide, please. As I said in the beginning, I said it is a delight for me that finally, in Nigeria and as Nigerians, we are beginning to appreciate the importance of mental health and how this impacts on the various activities of our life as envisaged by the topic of this discourse. You say in the workplace, in the church, and at home. And that is the general sphere in which a man exists, and we will speak to it. And I need to restate this. In Nigeria, we're too careless or nonchalant about the things that are important. The state of mental health, even up till now, last year, I think the mental health bill was passed, and I think it was passed for the sake of just belonging to the global position that everybody is. It has not been domesticated. Nobody has emphasized it. Nobody has sort of downloaded it to the general population to appreciate the state of mental health. That is why today we're still struggling. And this one is happy that we're beginning to, This, also I've used this Venn diagram to represent the topic of what I'm going to speak to today. You look at it, the family, the workplace, the church, and that is the same man. The same man exists in those three components of human existence. He exists in the man. I'm using man to as a metaphor for every human being, whether you are a woman, whether you are a boy, or whatever you are. I'm using man. And so I'm careful about gender sensitivity. So the shaded portion represents the individual in these different living spaces. I will further highlight the significance of this presently. The man exists in the family, he exists in the workplace, he exists in the church. Right. Now, I've tried to break it down. In the family, I'm not specifically about man as a gender, not in the general sense. The man in the family, it could be the father, it could be the husband, it's also the spiritual head, it's also the boss. What do I mean by that? Is the father to his children, is the husband to his wife, and is the spiritual head of the home. Is the one who coordinates, because the man, as the church, the Bible tells us, should be the spiritual barometer of the family. Is the one who puts everybody together, and that's why they say the woman respects the husband as spiritual head. And then it could be the boss as well. What do I mean by that? There are some domestics that work with the driver, work with them, the gardener, and all the rest. So in the family where he is any of those things. It could be any of those things to different sector of the home. The same man, when he gets to church, this same man is either a member of the congregation or is a church worker or even the pastor. He could also be the group leader. It could be a committee leader. It could be all kinds of responsibility that is visited upon him as a member of the church. I mean, so that is the same man who comes from a father as a husband, spiritual head and boss. He now comes to the church. He becomes a different person as a member of the congregation, as a church worker, as a pastor, as a head, or even the head of a complete church. And then the same man on Sunday, this is who he is. On Friday, Monday to Saturday, or even Sunday, family church, that's who he is. And then on Monday, or during the week, he becomes a worker. It could be a junior staff, it could be a middle-level worker, it could be a senior manager, it could even be the boss of a company. He's also a subordinate to someone, even if he's the boss, the ultimate boss, he's subordinate to the chairman of the company. And so this is the different spheres in which the man operates. It could be a factory worker, it could be one worker one way or the other. That is the same man in all this. And then you begin to understand the peculiarities of the various situations and what happens in the various spheres of his existence. And this we will get into when we now go into the different part. Now, his role in all of this capacity will signpost our discussions on mental health, because what he goes through in the state of mental in the home is different from what he goes through in the office, is also different from what he goes through in the church. So what is mental health? I mean, we can say we have said social, physical, and mental health. What is mental health? It is a state of mental well-being that enables that individual that we have seen as a father, as a worker, and as a church pastor or a church worker, his ability to cope with the stress of life in those different dimensions, realize his abilities in those different dimensions, learn well and work well, and contribute to his or her community. When we say community, I need you to understand that when you say community, as a family, is a community of family, other family members in that same community. When it comes to the church, it's also in a community. The church itself is a community of various people put together from different spheres of life. And also when you look at his workplace, he meets with all kinds of people with different areas, with different perspectives of life, and with different attributes, and also potentials, and also ambition. It is usually a similar, mental health. And that's why it's so important that we learn about it. From my experience and what I have seen with people, it's usually a similar invisible component of our life. Nobody sees it. When you say physical, you see the person if he has a hunchback. If somebody in the social, you see the person that is ostracized, he stays alone, he lives alone, is a hermit or something. But in this mental state, until something happens that is obvious, nobody takes cognizance of the mental state of anyone. That is why we can walk in an office with someone and he comes to work, we are happy, we laugh. The next day we said, if we hear he's committed suicide, we say, yesterday me and Mr. James and I were talking and this and that. We went to the same party, he even chatted with me. Because it is something that many times we are blind to. And this speaks to our level of observation. I'll come to this when we discuss. It's a kind of our life which is often neglected. It doesn't, why is it becoming obvious today? Because we are beginning to see different states of life. We see people wake up in the morning, pick up their gun and kill people at random. We see people who just decide to do things. They get on the road, they begin to misbehave, or people get out of their cars and they begin to fight the conductor. Those are some of the things that begin to speak to the component of our life that is so obviously neglected. They say, this man is not like this. He wasn't violent, he wasn't this, but something must have triggered him. This mental health speaks to the way the individual thinks, the way he feels, and the way he acts. When we discuss or when we entertain questions, I'll be able to explain it. When a man thinks, the way he thinks derives from his state of the mental state. The way he feels, I feel down today, I feel blue, as we usually say, I'm off color today. Or the way he begins to act irrationally, he begins to speak in a manner that we don't understand. Those are some of the things that begin to show a mental state that is affected. Then we say mental illness. It is very important in view of our general, there's a poor understanding of mental health to differentiate it from mental illness. I like us to have this by the side. Mental health is a state of well-being. Mental illness are health conditions which involve changes in emotions, thinking, or behavior, which are the diseased form of the way it should be in mental state. of the way we think, the way we act, the way we feel. But when an illness comes, it begins to hide things. It begins to the way we thinking, the way we look at things, act, behavior in the way we act. So that is what there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. That's why I try to highlight this. They can be associated with distress and or challenges functioning in social work or family activities or even in the workplace. So mental illness is therefore a medical condition. It's a medical incapacitation in which the person now begin to exhibit some situations, some attributes that was not there if the person is that Venn diagram of normal functioning. Right. Now, let us now begin to look at the different components that I mentioned. The man in the home. How do we begin to look at the man in the home? Family dysfunction. Then the man has an issue. This will affect his mental state. I mean, there's no way a man lives with this. You know, a family with the family dysfunction, I don't want us to see the totality of divorce or separation. People can be living together and there's a state of dysfunction. We've seen situations in which people come to church together, husband and wife. The only time they talk is when they're in church. When everybody gets back home, then everybody builds his own tent, to their own tent, of Israel. So family dysfunction, and people must know that this man in a state of family dysfunction is going to have an effect on the spouse, the wife, and then the children and whoever he exists in the home with. And this is a state in which this can then take him away from home and it will situate itself in another situation when we see him in another area of his human existence. What are the factors that can cause a man to his mental state to be disturbed? In the home, financial distress, particularly in Nigeria today. And unfortunately, many of you live outside Nigeria. When you send your dollar, it brings you so much naira. Here, there's so much stress on people as to what they can afford. I mean, let me give you an example. You can, in the morning, you can go and price something. They call it 10,000. When you now come back with 10,000 in the afternoon, they say it's gone to 12,500. I mean, those are issues, and you need to buy this thing for the home. You need to buy this for your child. You need to pay the lesson teacher. You need to pay the domestic staff. Financial distress, and your salary income has not changed. Yet the challenges that come upon the finances, they're so disparate and many. And then you begin to ask yourself, those are some of the situations the man in the home goes through that may distort his mental balance. Personal relationship, either with the spouse and children, and even with his own siblings. You see, when I talked about man in the home, yeah, this is his home, but he has siblings who live outside, who he also has a sense of responsibility to, or even his parents if they're still alive. And then so these are issues that can emanate in terms of relationship. If he has an issue with a spouse, he probably doesn't have an understanding spouse, or he himself is a difficult man. And many times we attribute our own difficulties to other people. So this person is difficult without. I remember what Dr. Kalade used to tell us in those days. He says, seek ye first to understand before you are understood. People want everybody to understand you, but you don't understand the circumstances of others in order to situate them within your own area so that you can have a feeling of what people go through. The level of empathy amongst us, between us and other people is so poor that the only thing we see is ourselves, is ourselves, is ourselves, is ourselves. Now, particularly today, what I'm beginning to see in my work with people, this is a major issue when we see children who use drugs. Then you find out that the father is never there. And then he says to himself, he has nobody to relate, he has nobody to, he can't even talk to his father. Even when he wants to make his choice of his career, the father just says, hey, this is what you do. We must begin to see that the man is the gum, if I can call it like that, is the gum that glues everybody together in a family. And we must come to understand our role and then how we impact our other people. Because if a man is difficult, the home is going to be difficult. And that is why his relationship outside the home will be impacted. He leaves home annoyed, he gets to the office, he now gets to the place, they say, you have come late to the office. His mood is again impacted by what has happened in the office. So we must find out that a man must be in a symbiosis with the environment in which he survives. That is the only way he can be successful. And I say it all the time. If a man is very successful outside and his home is in shambles with his wife and children, he's not a success. He's just a noisemaker. And that's why we must, and men, we must be able to sit down and understand the primary role that the Lord has given unto us, to see that we are supposed to be the barometer of the home. I see this also when it comes to these young people who use drugs. I ask them, who is your role model? Many children cannot point to their fathers as role model. And when they do that, it's usually in the negative. Oh, he started to drink, then I began to drink. This is what he does. He beats my mom. So that's why me too, I'm aggressive. We must begin to understand the impact our life as man in the home has on the other people. Now, marital disharmony. Now the situation has gotten so bad in family dysfunction, there has to be a separation or there's a divorce. And most parents don't know. They may say, oh, they are grown up, these children are grown up, they don't feel it. It is not true. Every child still depends on parents for one thing or the other. And when there's a divorce, then there's a separation in relationship. I'm not saying situations don't cause divorce, but we must come to a decision that before we do this, there must be a total sense of responsibility and understanding and the consequences of what could be. That is the only way the man in the home can be a success. And I also brought out physical disability. The man is in a wheelchair. The man has all kinds of things. Maybe he's blind in one eye. Maybe he has stroke and he can't walk. Those are issues that will bring him mental instability, even within his home. Even when his family loves him and they show the love, there's a limit in himself. He says to himself, see what I've caused. Everybody is now doting over me because I'm unable to do this. So these are things I want us to begin to look at. And also as people generally, probably again as Christians, I don't know many of us are Christians, we need to begin to interrogate our lifestyle. How does this conform with the dictates of our profession as a Christian? And how do we show this in the lives of other people that are not Christians, that then they can say, oh, with this man's life, I want to be like this person. It's so important. You know, many times we don't know that too many people are watching us. We think it's inconsequential. I can live my life. It's not true. There are a lot of people who are drawing comfort, who are drawing inspiration, who are drawing some form of capability from the way we live. So the man in the home is very pivotal to what happens in our society. Our society in Nigeria today is in disarray because the family is in disarray. And principally, when the family is in disarray, 80% of the time, the man is at fault. He's not patient, he's not there, he's making money. I'm making money for you. What are you saying? You don't want me to be sitting at home? Many times we don't need the money that you make. We need the emotional stability you bring to the home and the connectivity that you're staying at home brings. So it is not only about money. I've seen a lot happen to our young people today. And we don't know that the home is now beginning to destroy the children we are preparing for the future, because they take away from what they see from home into their lives. Maybe we will come to that. Gender-based violence. I say this because the woman can be violent to the man, but usually it's the man usually violent. But when I say violence, don't mean physical violence directly. There could be verbal violence. There could be emotional violence. There are all kinds of violence that come in gender-based. You, this woman, what do you do? I'm the only one running around the family. Am I the only one that has these children? Is it not for both of us? Honestly, the world today could do much better with a better understanding of each person's capability. Marriage, when we say marriage, we know there's a component of one's weakness and one's strength, and is always balanced at different situations in life. There's a time the woman is very there stable, the man is the one that is weak. Also, the man must know that a time comes when they must know that they need to be strong and when somebody is weak. It's a balance. There's nobody that has the total capability to do everything, or else God wouldn't want us to marry. Then you will have lived your life alone. We must know that we belong to one another. And without one, I give this example all the time. I say, look at the hand. Look at the fingers the way they are. People say, look at the thumb. It's so far away from the others. But I say to people, Would you like to try writing without the thumb? Nobody can write without the thumb. If the thumb goes away, then you need to learn to write again. And that's the same thing with about relationship. The man is like this. He's the one that should bring everybody together in the home. And I dare say, why the man in the home is so important and predominant is the fact that if this man is distorted from home, hardly can he do much outside in the other spheres of his human existence. And let me leave that, we'll come back. Substance or drug abuse, especially alcohol. And I hope we all know that alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world. But unfortunately, it is socially acceptable. That is, if you drink, if you don't misbehave, they say, oh, not a problem, alcohol is. You see, that's why there's an advert, they say, drink responsibly. And I ask people, tell me how to drink responsibly. If I drink a carton and I don't misbehave, is that responsible? If I drink a cup and I misbehave or I don't misbehave, is that responsible? So you see, the world today is beginning to dilute our values to the point that we're beginning to accept the unacceptable and we're taking it to be normal. We need to be, we can't correct the world. But I think it was Tolstoy who said, every man wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change himself. If you don't change yourself, you can't have an impact in the world. So it's the same with this man. This man does not create a standard of review of himself. He cannot expect other people to do the same. So when you create, okay, maybe when I get to the other sphere, next slide. Today, substance abuse is a major, major issue. Maybe I should just quickly speak to that. If we see the statistics that UNODC provided in 2018 from the global survey done, Nigeria should be worried. The global prevalence rate of substance use is 5.6. The case of Nigeria is 14.4, which is almost triple of global average. I know the thing that is very fearful. Out of every 4 users in Nigeria, 1 is a female. And not even only that, they find that the preponderance of use is between 25 and 39. If you then stretch your imagination, that is the economic and productive stage of any nation. Anyway, that's about substance abuse. Don't mind me. When I go into substance abuse, I lose my sense. I talk too much. Now, let me go to the next one, man in the church. This same man who is going through issues at home, who is having all kinds of difficulties, has come to the church. Some of the things that he is feeling at home, he will translate them or transport them to the church. Then the issue is, what is the role and the expectation as a church member? In church, service starts at 8. When do you get to church? You know, there are also expectations in the church. Yes, the church is a social gathering that you have the right to be or not to be. But if you want to be and be in a proper perspective of it, then you follow the rules and regulations. You can't say service is at 9 o'clock and you come in at 11:15. Then you need to begin to check what is disturbing that role of fitting into your expectation in the church. Financial difficulties. As it is at home, so it is in church. Oh, they say you belong to the Abraham Covenant group. We are supposed to contribute towards the church building. Each member must bring 10,000. You haven't paid your daughter's school fees. The same financial distress at home has translated itself. Then you begin to say to your, then you then say, I don't have rest at home from financial difficulties. I'm going to church. These church people, they go kill person. And then it begins to affect the way you relate, the way you get involved in the church. Is only money, is only money. Whereas it's not only money, there are benefits that you get, but the fact that financial distress as a man in the home is translated to difficulty in church. Those are issues we must begin to look at. But let's go on. Anonymity within the church. There are some people who feel they are not recognized. I come to the church. That's why we then see, in order to create a situation in which it is known is either noisy or difficult or does things in contrary to the expectation, so that somebody can say, is this man? No, is this man? So the thing is, we just must look at this role and begin to understand our own expectation. Anonymity within the church. But you know one thing that I always say, in the composite sense, if a man is sure of himself who he is, The status, your financial status, your academic status, in whatever social status should never impact on your being as a human person. But the problem is, if you don't know yourself and you are bothered about what people say about the expectation of the society, then there'll be a challenge in all these roles that I've mentioned. So that's why a man, Shakespeare said, to thy own self be true, to no other can thou be false. It was Socrates, he said, know thyself. In your home, as a family man, the wife has the expectation of you. Your children, different children, 3 children have different expectations of you. So never ever think you can fulfill the expectation of everyone that you come in contact with. You must first of all ask yourself, am I okay with myself? Am I satisfied? Am I comfortable in my skin? And if you are, you will survive in that Venn diagram that I put in the mental situation, the physical, because the mental affects the physical and the social. Let's go on. Moral expectations, particularly as a leader, when you're an elder in the church or the pastor, there are things that are expected of you beyond expectation from ordinary members. Because ordinary members has no expectation. He comes to church, he gets to his car, he goes home. But as a moral person, as the leader of the church is looking at you, members are looking at you. Even sometimes your children are being used to judge your role as a man in the church. Look at his children. They talk anyhow. They are very rude. They do their hair like dada, and yet they are boys, and they wear earrings. Those are things the church are beginning to use your children or people that are related to, even your own, as an expectation of you. So that is an area in which also we will look. As a pastor, performance expectation from the central leadership. Because you're a pastor and then maybe your church has many parishes, and then some parishes are zoned into an area and they say every zone must produce so and so. Every zone must go and establish 4 churches. You haven't stabilized your own church, but there's an expectation that you need to go and start another one. So you can begin to see the pressure. And this is the man that has an issue at home that is struggling with certain things at home. And he has come to church and then there's another expectation of him. So these are the areas in which a man can fall apart without knowing it in trying to fulfill the role and the expectation of other people. Right, man in the workplace, because that is what Deumi has said I should speak with. So man in the workplace, that's another component of his life. The content and the context of work, very important. What are you supposed to do? What is your work? What does it entail? What are you expected to do at the workplace? And what is the context of it? The workload and schedule. That is why many executives fall apart. Either they don't measure up or they are sad for lack of performance. Also, they mention that the workplace has no sympathy, because the workplace, their primary role is profit. And the moment you cannot give profit as they expect, they begin to count you as underproductive. And so those are issues for people. That's why people don't go leave. That's why people go to work and carry work home, transporting what should be left at work and bringing it home to impact on his role as a man. Then when he gets home, he doesn't have time for the family that is left. He begins to work again till midnight, and then he goes back to work the next day. Yet it doesn't meet the schedule. But there must be a work-life balance that everybody must work at. And then ask yourself sometime and face it truthfully, like a man looks in the mirror. Am I capable of doing it? Even in promotion, changes, when you are promoted, is it the promotion into another level? Are you fit for that promotion? Are you capable mentally? Are you capable in terms of expectation? But many people are not able to say to the office, sorry, I think I need training. Even the office does not give the training on the development for that new stage on the physical movement. Okay, we are taking you from Lekki branch, we are taking you to Shomolu branch. That is a change. And it depends on where you live. Maybe when you were in Lekki, you were living in Magogo or whatever they call in those areas of Lekki, or living in Lakwe. Now you have been moved to Shomolu. It means that you have to leave your house at Lakwe to come to work in Shomolu, and you can then begin to understand the changes that will bring upon you. It means that you need to wake up at a different time. It means that you need to do other things. Are you then going to say to yourself, let me rent a place around Shomolu so that Monday to Friday I can work there? And that's also the change that it brings, and also impacts on your role in the church, impacts on your role at home. because you are no more at home on the weekdays. And then you have to rush to church on Sunday and then rush home on Friday, go to church, and from church, you then come to Shomolu to begin the work on Monday. I'm just listing this so that we begin to understand the pressures these things bring. And then we ask ourselves, am I capable? Is either I'm dropping one role for the other and keeping my sanity, because your family, ultimately, they're the loser in all of these things if anything happens to you. If you lose your job or something happens to you and you are totally not there, it's the family that bears the brunt. And then we go to the substance or drug abuse, whether legal or illegal. Particularly today, many people are using legal drugs and they're getting addicted to it. I mean, when people use alcohol, it's legal, you can drink alcohol. Or when people use something like a tramadol, because tramadol is used to treat moderate and severe pains, and then it becomes a drug of use. And then the illegal ones, a lot of people are also beginning to, even married men, even pastors, in different areas of life, people are beginning to get involved in illegal use of drugs, marijuana. And it is usually when people are under pressure and people say, oh, for you to be, you need to jack up yourself. Then they begin to get involved with those things. Workplace relationship. How do we relate with our staff, particularly bosses? Let me give you an example. Many bosses don't know their subordinates. What do I mean? I don't know, you don't know. I don't mean you don't know them by name, but by their situation and circumstance. I'm not saying you should pry into their privacy, but you must know things about them so that when somebody comes late, which is unusual to some people, you don't just say, why are you late? Why are you late? You can say, Mr. James, this is unlike you. Something must have happened. And then he explains to you, they say, it is not that you are allowing incompetence or indiscipline, but you are showing understanding and empathy because you too can come late. Maybe you are coming to work, your driver hits a downfall driver, and then you need to sort that. Now that you're fine, you sort it out. Will you not come late? So what would you expect your subordinate to say? Look at Oga, that punished me yesterday for calling, but because it's Oga, nothing can happen to you. That is about leadership. It impacts on your leadership profile and how you put together your staff. Many people who do well, I think it was Peter Drucker, who said, people don't leave the offices where they work, they leave their bosses. And that says a lot of things about workplace relationship. It is not maybe the office is good, but the person they are working with directly has no care. It doesn't care. The only thing, performance. I need 40 tons of this product. If you don't get me 40 tons, you have failed. Excuse me. I'm not saying, these are rules I think people should begin to. Physical disability. Is this somebody that uses crutches, man in the workplace? And then the kind of work we do must be accommodated by your physical disability. Are there many companies who caters to that? Will you take somebody who uses crutches? It's not that you can't take them. If somebody is working in your office and he goes blind in one eye, you tell him to go away, or you find him a different job where he can function. Because when you tell him to go away, you are impacting on him in the workplace. You are impacting on him as a man who cannot provide for his family. You are also impacting on him in the church. He loses his sense of worth. So these are things we must, as a society. That's why the mentor said it's called the invisible. These are things that people know it doesn't matter. It matters. Because when a man is destabilized in himself, there's no way he can fit in the various components of the sphere of life in which he lives. Lack of appreciation. Even at home, that happens. We only talk to our children, you are not doing well, you are not doing. But when the child washes your car, when he cleans the house, when he cleans the plates, you don't say, oh, well done, Jide, I like what you have done today. That encourages him to do better. It's the same thing at work. In most places, it is favoritism. The poor reward system, like in Nigeria, for instance, the reward system is poor. There are no consequences for bad behavior and no reward for good behavior. It's only when somebody exerts outside the coin we begin to clap with it. The person was in Nigeria. A lot of people have worked in Nigeria who were never appreciated, who went elsewhere. And I tell people, appreciation does not have to be financial. It does not have to be pecuniary. It could be a word. Oh, well done, Mr. James. Oh, that was so good. Because of you, we won the award. These are small things. And junior staff in particular, they love those kind of things. It's not even only in terms of that. You can see them, you pat them on the back. And then you can see them and say, oh, come and sit with me. Let's talk. Let's eat in the canteen. I remember when I was in Cadbury, we used to have, then I was moved from medical to head the HR. And I saw this that canteen, we have two canteen systems. One upstairs for managers, one downstairs for junior staff. So I said to the MD, who was a white man, I said, Mr. Wallace Ghana, I'd like to do something. He said, what? I said, I'd like us to merge. You can eat anywhere. The junior staff can come upstairs. Initially, the managers didn't like it. They said, what do I mean? How do we know we're manager? I said, it is not by, a tiger does not proclaim his tigritude. It is not by your position that we recognize you. But I tell you, by the time we did that, the MD agreed, it changed the different component of how people feel. The juniors now feel respected. I can sit with the MD and eat with him. They can sit with the senior manager, and then they were able to communicate. The things we could not communicate on the floor, we could not talk about. You see that thing that I mentioned on the floor, and that helped and engender performance. These are the things that I think will give appreciation in little ways that we don't know make so huge an impact on the lives of other people. Perceived favoritism of others. This man is from village. You promote him without empirical evidence of performance, and you punish others because of one thing or the other. Or the person comes to talk to you about somebody else. I mean, those are things that impact on the man in the workplace. Some of them they seem little, as I said, invisible, but truly very significant in the consequences of life. So what are the signs to look out for in our relation as the man in the house, man in the church, man in the workplace? Let it be said that on many occasions, the signs are subtle and almost invisible. But what this calls for is keen observation of family members, members of the same congregation, and colleagues at work. You know, I mentioned to you, many of us have seen situations when people we were working with committed suicide, or members of a family commit suicide, or a church. I mean, there was a lady in the church who wrote something on Facebook. She said for 6 months, she was an active member. She was even working in the church office. 6 months she was in depression, and nobody recognized it because she was coming to work and she would do her work, but nobody was looking at the little things. Maybe the more mistakes she was making. These are, look, for those of you who live abroad, you will understand what I'm saying. That is why you see abroad, a robbery happens or a crime happens, and they say they are looking for the person who committed. In 24 hours, somebody would describe the man because somebody was observant to see the man, was observant to see the behavior. Look at what happened yesterday when the man set himself on fire. They were watching, and suddenly they were able to put it together, the circumstances of that situation. In Nigeria, it will take you donkey years to know, because if you enter a room and talk to a crowd of people, and you go out and somebody comes to say, that man that just spoke to you, what was the color of his shirt? You'll be wondering that half the class will not know, because our level of observation is poor. And that is why, even if that thing so physical, we lose cognizance of it. You can then imagine something so almost invisible like mental state. Oh, sometimes he laughs too much, and the way you look at it is negative. You don't know that there could be a reason why this man who doesn't do this begin to laugh too much. Or maybe he doesn't talk anymore. He has withdrawn. This is a man that we used to watch television together, but he doesn't watch things that he used to like, is beginning to veer away from it. And those things don't tell us something. Your secretary who used to be very efficient begins to make little mistakes. And then you are not thinking this is a sign of something, and then until something happens. And then, oh, I say, oh, sorry. Because this happened to me before. A classmate of mine, we were close. My wife and I were visiting with her. We never knew that the drinking was so bad. I just would, and she was from a good home. Until one day they called me from a hospital that I should come right now. You know, she went into coma and she died. And I said to myself, what the heck? A medical doctor who's a friend to somebody, and I didn't see the sign that this was getting bad. We were laughing, we were joking. I would visit, my wife and I would visit with her. But that tells you that too many times we overlook certain things, we overconsider, we over justify, oh no, not a problem, it's not a problem. But are we willing to interrogate, whether it's colleague at work or somebody in church? You used to see him, suddenly he's not coming to church anymore, And we say, oh, he has backslided. Who says? Instead of us to interrogate it. And what is the thing that is lacking? Love is a strong barometer of all our relationship. And for those of us who are Christians, I have no apologies for saying this. Look at the Bible. From the first page to the last page, the basic undercurrent of it, guarding it, is love. And if we can do the love, it can be platonic. It can be the way in which we relate to other people, in which we when we want to query people, when we want to accuse them, we can do so in love, so that the person does not feel like a worthless person. And that is a major issue, the major sign of the fact that the world is failing. The level of humanity in the world today is almost zero. We don't care anymore. There's an accident. Instead of how do we call the people to come and attend, we are filming it. Then we can put it on social media, breaking news. What is the meaning of that? Somebody dies, they haven't told the family, it's already been announced on social media. We are breaking the bounds of humanity and decency. Those are some of the things today. Even those people doing it, we may not know. It could be just subtle signs of mental illness, just to be known. I'm the first person, I'm the first person, I'm the only person. What is the competition about? Now, I guess let me see. Right, we are getting close to the end. These signs are general for the various living spaces of the individual. You know, I talked about the home, I talked about the church, I talked about the workplace. These are things that we show or signpost that there's some changes in sleeping pattern, sleeping too much or sleeping too little. They may mean something. That will be major for people at home who watch the person. These are signs, I said these are signs that no matter in which environment the person is, they will show changes in sleeping pattern, changes in the appetite, mood changes. You see somebody who seems happy, suddenly is down. And then all those subtle things, why are children deciding to stay in the room? They don't want to stay with us at the table and things like that. Negative thoughts. The person is always thinking, and that usually is a sense of worthlessness. Oh, no, I'm not making it. Everybody's better than me. Maybe this will happen, this will happen. Usually something negative. And then withdraw from previously enjoyed activities. This is somebody that maybe, let me use young people or a man who likes football. He's always talking about, on Saturday, let's turn to the TV. Saturday, they play football. No, I'm not interested. Those are things that begin to tell us there's something wrong. Drug use. Then people begin to use drugs just to make up and then to put, many young people will say, oh, I can't talk in the midst of too many people. So I need to pep up, or I can't sing. I mean, many of the musicians are bad examples for our children. And that's why we need to curtail the use of social media, particularly among young people who cannot make up their mind and who are still impressionable. These are the people they see as role models because there's role models that have failed at home. Absenteeism. This person now begins to get either from class, truancy, or it doesn't come to church meetings, or it doesn't come to the office, or it begins to get frequent sick leave certification. Increased turnover on staff should tell the management that there's something wrong, particularly in schools. When you see your teachers come, they don't spend 3 months, they are gone. But it's different situations like that. So the thing is, these are issues for us to contemplate, to begin to think about. And they must begin to raise our antenna in the right direction, not in punitive way or judgmental way, but in ways that we can help. Poor performances in prescribed responsibilities in the various ways we are supposed to work, we are failing, we can't meet up with schedules, and then maybe something like that, and then our productivity is poor, we are lacking in attention, perception is poor. And when perception is poor, there's poor decision making, impaired perception. Oh, the manager does not like me. Oh, my dad does not like me. That's why my mother does not like me. She prefers Peju to me. Those are, then they begin to affect us in the way we relate. Even the ways, I was telling you about a thing I want you to check. It was a story written by Meghan Markle in New York Times in 2021. The title was The Losses We Share. If you go and Google it, you will find it a lovely article which speaks to what we are doing today about how do we care about one another? How are we perceptive about the things of others? How are we considerate of other people's issues? How are we willing to Jesus Christ gave himself in sacrifice to us. Even it was difficult for him. He said, if it were impossible, I would want this to take him. I said, no, but for the name of the Lord to be glorified, he did it. How are we willing to sacrifice for others? I'm not saying kill ourselves, but in the things that are physical, in the things that we can give, how are we willing to do that? Next slide, please. And I think it will probably be the last part of our talk before, management. So what are the ways in which we can manage these things? It's important to say that some of these mental illnesses are a temporary situation. They're not permanent. And because people discountenance them, people also have a poor reflection of it, a poor understanding. They will say, oh, he's going to Yaba left. You can't. So people are not willing to go and get it treated, or they are not willing to go so that people will not speak. They have seen him in Yaba, or maybe he's not well, maybe he's insane. The fact that somebody has mental stability does not mean he cannot perform. The important thing is to understand the situation, understand the management process, and then put the person in a way that less compromises his mental state, and which is the job of everybody. And that's why the HR department today must be different from the fire and hire of the days of personnel. That is not today the work of the HR manager. The HR manager is supposed to be the glue of the company, who understands, who can speak on behalf of someone. I remember when I was in Cadbury, somebody came and said, look, I want this manager to go. So I said, why? He said, underperformance. I said, we brought out the file of this person. In the last 3 years, you scored him excellent, excellent. What has happened suddenly that is no more performing? Then you must know there must be something wrong. If you don't do that, you sack the person for no reason, and then just because there's a friction or there's a misunderstanding between or expectation of the manager to the other one. Easy flow of communication. Seek always to understand others before you are understood. And when we communicate, let the communication be clear. And so you can give a level of expectation of what you want. And so the person is not ambiguous in relationship. Say, what does it mean? If I do this now, will he say this? So it's important. Moderate expectation of others. The fact that someone is a high-flying person does not mean that all the time his performance will be high-flying. So we must know. We must offer social and psychological support to one another. We all cannot be strong at the same time. When somebody is weak, someone should be strong. We should also provide the psychological cushion that we need in difficult times. Particularly in times of grief, we are willing to do it in the immediate. We stay there from morning till night for 1 week. And the person, the agreed person, the person is buried. What happens in a month's time? What happens in 2 months, 3 months? Everybody walks away. Nobody remembers anymore until there's another thing. So we must begin to come to understand that the psychological support, the social support should be like, I'm not saying we should be sleeping there. Even if you cannot go there, as Mr. Lagbaja, Mrs. Lagbaja, how are you doing? I just said, let me check on you today. Or I didn't see you in church, and things like that. Policy modulation, that is consideration to others. Recently in Lagos, one eating outlet was shot because a disabled person, a handicapped person came there. They said they couldn't serve him. I mean, those are not things. I know in America, for instance, you cannot set up an outlet without making facilities available. Please, sorry, let's go back. All right. Without making facilities also available and conducive to those who are physically challenged. Seek professional help as soon as possible. And witness the fact that it is, I think they used to say in CNN one time, it is not out of place to be out of place in yourself. I mean, you can feel off color is a normal human thing. So don't think you are different. Seek help when you need help. Offer, particularly the offices, offer off-site treatment without fear of consequences or job loss. Let the people feel they may not be able to engage the in-house because of stigma and discrimination. So offer a place where they can go anonymously and they can return and without the consequences of job loss or maybe lack of promotion. Next slide. I think that should be the final one. Next slide, please. I think it's the final slide. So mental is not synonymous with insanity. We must know that. Insanity is completely different. That is a loss of total ability to even recognize self, not to talk of recognize others. Stigma and discrimination deter moves to seek assistance and treatment. When we profile them, oh, this person, see, oh, and this maybe the way he's behaving is smart, or this or that, and then they will not be able to open up or seek help. This is the time for our country and all of us to take this issue more seriously to offer support to our citizens. This discussion is therefore contributing to the demystification of mental illness and creating an awareness for mental health. I think that is my last slide. I believe so. I thank you all for listening and for the time that you've given me. So, over to you, Dokun.
Okay, sir. So we would appreciate questions and comments and feedback for Dr. Adedeji. Please, you could raise your hand and unmute and speak. And let's make it brief, straight to the point, so that he can respond. Thank you. Yes, Sister Ruth, please unmute and speak.
We need to go on vacation. We need it. It's a time for us to get refreshed. Personally, we can go on vacation with our family. We can plan to go on vacation as a family. We can plan to go on vacation as a couple. We need it. We need that time to get refreshed. We need that time to play. We need that time to look at each other's eyes. If the family is fine, society will be fine. Let's create time for our families. Let's create time to also look on the other side of the fence. I mean, look at our neighbors. Let's create time to build up friendship. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ruth. There's something I also like to add. As Christians, we create family altars. What is the family altar for? Is it only for praying? It shouldn't be. It should be for a time of reflection when we can talk about various things that, many of our children are challenged in various ways, but I'm not sure we give them the opportunity to air their feelings. They are scared. So that is an area in which we must begin to use to know our children, to know our family. And it's so critical that, as Sister Ruth said, vacation is a time of refreshing. Even you don't have to travel, you can just leave Lagos or maybe on the weekend go and find time to stay on the beach and then just lose time. Your children will wonder, oh, so daddy can even do this. You'll be amazed at what it does to them, to their psyche, and it breaks down barriers. I agree with you completely, man.
Thank you.
Right.
Ambassador Idowu, you raised a concern about vacation. You want to speak on that, sir?
Yes. Thank you very much. When I say vacation, okay, it's a bit satirical because in Nigeria, you ask how many of us go for vacations. In fact, when I was in service, when some people take their leave, when they were still getting leave bonus, some people used to convert their leave, used to take money for their leave. they used to convert the money they would convert the leave to money. It's not that I'm saying vacation is not necessary. It is necessary, but with our culture here and the economic situation, many people don't give it a thought. And that brings me to what we are talking about generally. You see, we are restricting our discussion to a section of the society, whereas this society is much larger than what we are considering. We are sort of restricting to Christian families. I don't know why the speaker restricts it to Christian families, because I think this is a much smaller sample space when we are talking about Nigerian society. Thank you.
Okay. I saw Brother Dilaja, you raised your hand. Maybe you could ask your question so that Dr. Adedokun can answer them together.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alabi. Good morning to everybody, which I think is the afternoon in Nigeria. I am happy to be on this program. I wasn't expecting it, but it came as a shock to me to join, and I joined late, but with the little thing I got, I need to ask a question from the doctor. He said something about family, husband and wife living together. And my question is, if husband and wife is not living together, are they not met for each other, or are they met for each other? If your wife is in Nigeria and the husband is in US, the wife is doing business and just come occasionally to visit, and then leave the wife, leave the husband and the children here. Are they met for each other, or are they not met for each other? That's my question.
I'm so grateful for this session and all that has been spoken. I'm still a little concerned about creating awareness about mental health. He made a distinction between mental illness and insanity. You know, before something gets to insanity, there must have been signs and symptoms and all that. But in our society, especially in Nigeria, we see any sign like that as a stigma, and we tend to cover up. You know, when I was a little younger, you know, and practicing in Nigeria, I had the uncomfortable assignment of seeing a mentally ill a professor, you know. It was sort of, locked up in the house because they don't want people to know what was happening and all that. Eventually, the man passed, you know. So such things are very painful, and we need, how do we create more awareness, especially in our country, Nigeria, so that when things are recognized early, they can come up, you know, people in the family can be aware and be able to assist and support. So that is what is, that's my question, so to say.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ma. I believe that no matter how, let me start from the question about vacation and the role of the church leader, and then coming back to the definition. I believe that there's a saying that they say, stop to smell the roses. So even if you can't plan immediately 1 week, 2 weeks vacation, which is recommended, at least during the weekend, celebrate your Friday, not in a nightclub, not by drinking, but at least have time to pause and do some little time for yourself to unwind, to refresh. So let's, create time to make sure that we can reflect, stop to smell the roses, they say. And then the question of leadership challenge, let's all remember that we are all humans, and leadership challenge is always everywhere, whether in the church, whether in the workplace, whether in politics, there are always challenges for us. And one good example I always give is that, especially in the church setting, you remember when Elijah was to be taken away, and they were asking Elisha, who was his servant, that your master will be taken away. Elisha said calmly, boldly, that I heard from God. I know God speaks to me, even though I'm following Elijah as my boss, but I also have a relationship with God. So I always encourage everyone that is serving under leadership of a man of God or a general overseer, whatever the title we give them, that does not mean that you should not hear from God. Because when you hear from God, that comforts you, even if they are not fair in distributing assignments. There are times my wife and I will laugh over it. You draw up a schedule, and you get to church, and whoever is the lead pastor changes it. You have prepared, you've been given notice that you will do this, but you get to church and they change it. The test is, are you serving man or God? Your purpose is to serve God. So the Holy Spirit tells you that, yes, even though they didn't give you the platform to speak, that doesn't discourage you from serving God. Dr. Adedeji, welcome back, sir. The question that I'm yet to answer on your behalf is the question of the difference between mental illness and mental health. Yes, and then the how do you know when the person an insanity? Yes, mental health and insanity. What's that difference?
You see, I said mental health is a state of well-being in which the person is cognizant of the way he thinks or acts or behaves. But when you come to insanity, insanity is the sense of loss of perception. The person does not even know himself. They don't have self-awareness. And that's a complete different situation. When somebody comes and says, look, I have an issue, this is it, I don't sleep well, that is a state in which the person is still aware. But when somebody is insane, it's a total loss of self-recognition. After that, then there's no recognition of anyone else. He lives in a different world. That's insanity. And most of the cases we see are not cases of insanity. You find that many times it's just a lot of perception. Some of the people that we even see that this person is not well. When they're taken into a different environment, and then they're offered love, and then they're offered understanding and a decent appreciation, some of them, you then find that they're really good people. What is insanity? Insanity is when somebody is in total, there's a source of a sense of loss of control and self, and there's no recognition of self or perception of it, which is a different thing. Okay. How that makes it clear a bit, and then people must know that mental health is just an awareness of a state of a person, the way they behave, the way they live, the way they think, the way they act. But illness, when it comes to illness, that is an impairment of those attributes.
We had done this before in 2022, mental health for leaders. But today, we widen the scope to include the workplace, the church, and virtually everywhere you may be. It's worth to note it. Now, quick recap, like I've said, what are the things that are causing these challenges? These are stress, these are obsession, depression, trauma. This is what we define as mental illness.
How good are you at recognizing early signs that your mental health is slipping? I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos. It's very hard to pull yourself out of a hole when you bottom out from depression. It's much easier to change your course if you haven't gotten too low. Here are some relatively common signs that your mental health is going downward, and these are in no particular order. Number 1, you stop bathing or reduce it to maybe once a week or every other week. I use the term bathing because I'm not talking specifically about taking a shower if you're someone who regularly sponges off in the sink. This isn't a judgment about how you clean yourself. The significance is that whatever way you clean yourself, you stop doing it or struggle to do it consistently. This low attention to hygiene is more common than one might think. I see it a lot, and I always ask about it when someone isn't doing well, because when you get depressed, everything becomes hard. You can lie in bed and feel overwhelmed with the thought of needing to undress, much less cover your body with soap and rinse. What's more, because hygiene is one of those basic things that we all attend to, you know it's not good that you don't feel like doing it. And some people can really beat themselves up or really feel bad for not keeping themselves clean. The guilt doesn't make you do it though, it just adds to the misery you feel. The second sign is not brushing your teeth for days, weeks, or even months for some people. And this is similar to not bathing, but a little different, as people prioritize personal hygiene differently. If you live in a warm climate or do active work, you may not be able to go without bathing, but brushing your teeth becomes the extra thing that just becomes too hard. A third sign that your mental health is slipping is your surroundings become super cluttered. You may have days of dishes piled in the sink with dried food stuck to them, or clothes all over the floor, mail stacked up that you haven't read. You may have a full voicemail and hundreds of unanswered emails and text messages. And the unanswered emails and texts may be because it's too hard to check, but it can also be because of the fourth sign, which is you frequently lose track of time and can spend lots of time sitting around doing nothing. One of the features of depression is what's called psychomotor slowing. Your mind moves slowly, and even your body movements are slowed. It's like you're living with your speed turned down to 1/2. At this pace, things take longer to do, but also you can sit around staring into space doing nothing. You think you're only sitting there for 5 minutes, but someone around you notices that you're not doing much, and you're like, it was just a couple of minutes. And the other person's like, no, you've been sitting there half an hour. So because time moves slower for you, you don't get much done and things pile up. Before you know it, you've got 30 unchecked text messages from friends and family, a full voicemail, and dozens of emails. Now you feel behind on everything, and it's overwhelming to try to catch up. Going back to the staring in space, you may think, I'd love to have the disposable time to sit around and do nothing. But it's not easy for a non-depressed person to sit with no stimulation unless you're doing some form of meditation. We need some kind of stimulation, and it's easy to meet that need with a mobile device. So to be in a room with nothing going on and just looking around means something isn't right. Number 5 is feeling strong emotions just underneath the surface, especially when those emotions don't match your circumstances. An example of this is feeling tears just behind your eyes that can fall at any time, even when there's nothing making you upset. You feel fragile, and life itself feels sad. Or you may feel anger in your chest, like fire in a dragon's chest, that you're afraid will just spew out at the least provocation. Feeling unstable like this can lead to the 6th sign, which is isolating and avoiding people. You may be afraid that you'll break down in front of people or blow up and lose your stuff in front of them. Or maybe even if you think you can hold it together, you don't want people asking you a lot of questions about how you're doing. If you're unhappy and just still trying to push through the days, you don't want to be reminded of how unhappy you are or hear about how perfect everyone else's life seems by comparison. The last sign is feeling exhausted and sleepy no matter how much rest you get. And this isn't just an energy thing. You can actually fall asleep a couple of hours after you got up. And this may tie into the sign of being able to sit unstimulated and lose track of time. So you can sit for a while looking around and then doze off and not realize you were sleeping until you come to or someone interrupts you from your nap. Although oversleeping and feeling tired are symptoms of depression, there are other reasons for having this, such as having a low thyroid condition, low vitamin D levels, medication side effects, and even high sugar and high carb diets can make you go in and out of feeling tired and sleepy throughout the day. Can you resonate with any of these signs? If you notice that it's happening to you, it's time for a mental wellness check. And this is where you would optimize your self-care. I think the 3 foundational things that contribute to mental wellness is prioritizing your sleep to get 7 to 9 hours if you're an adult and 8 to 10 if you're a teen, minimizing processed foods from your diet, and getting 150 minutes of moderate level of aerobic exercise a week. The aerobic exercise can be brisk walking in your neighborhood or a park, or you can do it in your home using a free streaming service. The Nike Training Club has free workouts that you can do with trainers. It even includes yoga. I know it sounds basic, but increasing your physical activity has been shown to improve depression symptoms and even pull you up when you're on your way down. Check out the free workouts at the Nike Training Club, and you can download their app. And watch this video for more on how exercise affects your mental health. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
I put it at DIY tips. What are the things that you can do to make sure that you are not only checking yourself, but avoiding being classified as, yes. So now, self-care tips that you need to do, like you've seen in that video: develop a routine, eat well, optimize sleep, get outside, take some fresh air, practice good fitness, reflect on your day, use a light box, don't even take alcohol. It's not good for you. Drink water, reach out to a medical professional to help. Now, we again bring the resources that we have in-house for you to check out. We have books on your daily devotional. We have books on your relationship, management lessons from Zacchaeus. For my friend at 50, those are nuggets that tells you life experiences, especially if you've crossed the age of 40. Mom and Dad, it's a good gift again for you, especially as the Mother's Day is approaching, to tell young parents that need to know more about parenting. And we have a devotional that is specially addressed to the youths. Please make sure you have all this with you. Again, you can connect with us. We have different assignments that God has given us. This leadership session is one of them. Please note the website link, note the YouTube link for the Sunday class, for the teaching sessions that we have done on this leadership summit. It's also available for you on the Practical Workable Solutions YouTube site. Please note it. And we also have the daily empowerment devotionals, which you can put whether you use iPhone or Android. It's applicable. You can use it. And before we go, remember, this word came as we were preparing for this summit. I don't know who it is for, but please take it for yourself and pass it to someone who may need it. Never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence. Our next meeting will be on May 18th. And I want you to not only be there, but please invite another person. So before we go, let's take for a few minutes your feedback on what my wife has said and your questions, your comment, but please straight to the point, and please, let's hear you. Unmute and speak.
The word that you said you received that is for somebody, can you help us display it back?
Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you.
If we're able to view it more than once, I think it will sync. Thank you, sir.
Never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence. It was heavy on my heart as we were preparing for this. Like, okay, even though we're talking about mental illness, but the Lord wants this word for someone. And please don't be held back by whatever has happened to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, I believe this conversation is very much needed in the body of Christ as well as in our Nigerian culture. Because one of the things that I notice as an American-born Nigerian is that Nigerians don't rest. We are probably one of the most hardest working people, and without rest, we're not able to function at our ultimate capacity. And if you look at our white counterparts, they are always going on vacation, always, looking for moments of rest and pockets of rest, and they're thriving in their respective fields of professions and everything. And I think it's necessary to model rest because one, God shows us rest when He created the world. The gift of rule of first mention. One of the first things that He teaches us is rest on the seventh day, and it's something that we should practice on a regular basis. It's not something that, oh, my vacation is 8 months down the road. No, this is something that we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's okay, this is my day, or this is my moment where I could say, okay, this is stress free. I'm not taking any calls, I'm not taking any responsibilities. I'm just taking time to, one, if it has to just be listening to the word and not necessarily studying it, you're adding to your spiritual man. But then also it's just being still before God to hear from Him, and that allows you to be filled and be at rest with Him. Another thing is just like they mentioned in the video, taking walks, or uh, the sun, being out in fresh open air, just being open to the scenery. Rest is very important. The other aspect that Mrs. Alabi spoke on is the isolation post COVID. We have been so isolated, and it's that fear of, oh, don't get me contaminated, don't do this, fear of being sick. All this fear driven isolation has caused us to not deal with mental health. So we don't see people, we don't communicate, and God has said that it's not good for man to be alone. So how do you navigate that is because you need community, you need fellowship. The Bible talks about not forsaking the assembly of the brethren. So we have to be mindful of making sure that we're intentional with building relationships, asking questions. With the presenter that spoke earlier as well, where he said the quote of above all else, seek first to be understanding, then to be understood, is very important. That we ask questions, inquire, how are you feeling, how is this person doing, and then also being in a space where you can be safe enough to be vulnerable, seeking a community that is allowing you to voice out your concerns. I think with our Nigerian community, we need to do better, because as a younger generation looking up, I see people working 7 days a week and never resting, and it's not fair for us, because I understand that the resources that were available to them were limited, and now we have to look at them and say, okay, now you're in a space where I need you to rest, because I want you to live long. I'm looking at my parents and I'm like, I want you to live long. I don't want you to burn out. I don't want you to die prematurely because you don't know how to rest. And that mindset, honestly, was I would say I carried it on for many years, and it took understanding the Word of God. It took community to help me understand that it's okay to rest. You shouldn't feel guilty. Self-care is not selfish. You shouldn't feel guilty for saying, no, I cannot attend this event. No, I can't do this. Setting boundaries that allow you to have a space of rest and being alone in certain spaces. Isolation is different from retreating. I think it's necessary to retreat and not isolate. There's a difference.
Okay. Thank you so much, Florence, for that insight. And I hope all Nigerian parents that are here, you've heard that from one of our children. You don't rest. Nigerian parents, you don't rest. Please create rest in your schedule. Dr. Nima, you can lower your hand and ask your question. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. God bless us all. Thank you, Pastor Abimbola. Thank you, Sister Toyin, for this message. Thank you, Sister Florence, for just speaking before me. You have just said everything on my mind. I'd been holding myself to not say things till the end, and she just took the words right out of me. One thing I know is that, and I put it in the chat, sometimes we think going for party and staying in church all day long, all week long, we attend all the services, you go to work and come back, we think that we never find the time to rest. We don't have the time to even go sit on the porch and just enjoy nature. There's something about when our grandparents were growing up, at least for my grandpa. He used to sit on the porch, and that was a way of socializing and greeting people. Also, in those days, I would say, well, those days, because I'm a very young woman. But in those days, the elders, I'm not calling anyone elder, they go take the time and check on other people or check on the young ones. Nobody is doing that anymore. I have very few aunties who will send texts and WhatsApp. Everyone just assumes everyone is doing well. We are talking of mental health today. Mental health is in different factors. How can people say, oh, we didn't know that he had issues. Somebody will kill themselves. Marriages are breaking up. People will only hear when the marriage has broken up, or just so many strange things. And I cannot comprehend for the life of me how we have lost our human touch with one another. Are we trying to live like the Americans who isolate themselves? Or are we trying to bring our culture into America to even educate the Americans? We have neighbors we don't talk to. There's a song, I've forgotten but the words of that song is very, very popular. Now, why would you say you want to evangelize? You're going to a city mission or going to, international missions across the world, but yet you don't even cross the road to talk to your neighbors. What kind of Christianity are we practicing? What kind of mental health are we practicing? Co-workers, you don't know what's going on. We isolate ourselves from them. What are we practicing? It wasn't like this. And we can't blame it on the cell phone. The cell phone or internet was supposed to make things easier for us. My mom still has letters. She was showing me letters from 1956. Her father was writing her. I cannot even believe those letters. In fact, the first thing I asked her, I said, I didn't know my grandfather could even write English. He didn't go to university. But here we are today. With all the knowledge, we have lost it all. We are losing humanity. Charity starts at home. We build the home. Our mental health goes body, soul, and mind. Sleep well, eat well, relax, take a walk in the park, put your leg on the grass. They call that grounding. You walk barefooted. Now it's now being instituted in all the holistic care. Walk barefooted. Take a walk on the beach, on the sand. It's good for your soul. See green. It is good for your soul. And of course, connect with human beings. It's good for the soul. Remember, love God first and love one another. That's the greatest commandment. God bless us all.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adedokun asked, Adedeji, I keep Dokun Adedeji, Dr. Adedeji. Can you please respond to those questions, comments, and so that we can round up? You're welcome.
Right. Thank you very much. I must appreciate you all for the opportunity to interact with you today on this particular subject. And I like the array of discussion that I've done on. You see, I said something at the beginning. The mental health is treated as an invisible, unfeeling part of the human person. It speaks to touch. Touch not necessarily tactile, but touch in the sense of a connectivity. We are losing that connectivity, and because we are losing it, we are losing our humanity. That is why people can be taping a gory picture of something happening on the road. They take it and they flash it. They see, look, when I was growing up, you won't see a dead dog on the road or a dead chicken. But today you see a dead human being and people gape and just laugh and take pictures and walk away. What happened to us? We're losing it. And until we do things like this and bring people back to reality, you see, even the church is not helping. The church does not speak about family unity anymore, about connect, it's about prosperity. And what is prosperity without unity, without a family background? The ills we are talking about today in the society emanate from the fact that there's family disruption. There's no connectivity, even within the house. The child is on phone, the dad is on phone himself, and they're at dinner table. There are no rules guiding the use of those things. They're good, but they cannot be at the detriment of the life we used to have. People today don't know what it is to check on people. And just as the last lady said, we work with people we don't know, yet we know them because they are working with us, but we don't know them. We are married to people that we don't know, that we pretend to know. We have children that we don't know. They said, my child. But where were we when they were growing up? The thing about having family is not about number of children. It's about have one and two and know what your child is about. That's why we don't know today the ambition, the career direction of our children. Because in our own head, we have built careers for them only to fulfill our own egos so that they can say, oh, the doctor's son is the son of a doctor. Who the heck cares? I've said to parents many times, we are not what we read. We are the things we make of what we have read. Wole Soyinka did not read medicine. He read literature, for crying out loud, but he's known everywhere on the surface of the earth. But we want our children to read medicine. Younger brother to Wole Soyinka taught me in medical school. I'm sure if I mention his name, you don't know him. And you see, the thing is, we're beginning to put too much priority on things that are so minute and infinitesimal. And we are leaving the things that are so fundamental. And that's why I say usually when I talk to people who are Christians, if we don't return to Eden, we can't get it right. And what is Eden? The time of innocence. Time of, God said, I come in the cool of the evening to fellowship with Adam and Eve. He could stay in heaven, but he taught us fellowship from way back, which is now being lost. Churches want to be so big that they lose sight of their congregation. What is the point of having a big church and you don't know your members? It's better we return to basic things. What were the things that gladdened our parents? Our parents will go to the farm in the morning, they will return in the evening, they will play in Ayo with their friends and taking maybe palm wine in the cool of the evening. But what do we do today? We don't. Our children are addicted to PlayStation, and the things that take away the livelihood of person are the things we get engaged in. Money is the in thing. Nobody cares about character anymore. Until we go back to these basic things and moral values, we will lose it. But where should it begin? The home. And that's why the topic today says man in the home, in the workplace, in the church. The same man who is unstable at home cannot be stable in the office, cannot be stable in the church. So until that balance is found, the church returns to its primary responsibility of building families, of building homes. It is only then a society can be better. I read recently an American, a German American, he claimed that he died. The next day they found him in Russia living with someone.
Yeah.
They said they said he was dead. They thought he was dead. 3 years ago, later they just discovered he was living in America, in Russia, simply with his wife or mistress or whatever. A lot of people have done that before because people will find out at the end of it all, it is not money. It's about the quality of life. It's about the quality of living. It's about the impact we make in the lives of other people. That is satisfaction. That's about life. We're talking about Jesus Christ today. How many years after his death? He only lived for 33 years. His ministry was 3 years. Impact is what we should go. And in doing that, you see, in psychology, there are 3 components of a human person. The first one is called id. ID is genetic. There's nothing you can do about it. The next one is called ego. And I tell people that this is not about pride, about arrogance, but what it speaks to What is the essence of you? Who am I? Many of times that we live in splendor, in richness and everything, we don't know who we are. That's where the Nigerian will come and say to you, my name is Adedeji Chief Doctor, because who cares about your titles? Anybody can have titles. But what is the essence of you? Who are you? If you are not complete as a human person, the superego, which is the third component, will make a mincemeat of you. Because the superego is everything that is external to you, your family, your home, your person. And without the boundary around your life, creating a profile of who you are, people will tell you who you are and who you are not. And that's the essence of what we're losing today. If we don't return to those things and allow parents, parents must allow their children to discover themselves. We don't. The African society does not. I'm talking, you are talking, I'm your father. Do you know? I know what is good. You don't know what is good for him. You're only pretending to know because you think this is what is good for him. What if it's not? I give an example in Nigeria. There's a woman who started a place called Cakes and Cream. She read law. She has never practiced law in her life. But she makes so much money. The outlets in Lagos are ever filled. Look, honestly, I'm glad that we are talking about these things today. I think we should go back and reflect. Let us not be too spiritual to understand that we live in this world, but we are not of this world. The things of the world are good, but we need to put a reflection around them to make it habitable, to make it conducive to our heavenly journey. If we don't do this, we are wasting our time. And then we will make all the money, and then they just say, and so what? They said something about Mandela. They said Mandela was a man. Now, when he had achieved the point, he doesn't sit down there and begin to look at the environment. He finds another mountain to climb. We must know that our life is a culmination of the impact, the steps we have lived. We're talking about Mandela, who died how many years ago? In Nigeria, we're talking about Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who died in 1987. Nobody is talking about the money he had. Nobody is talking about the houses he built. People are talking about the impact, his influence on their life, becoming who they become because he was. If we don't begin, I think that will give me a kind of summary of all these things we're talking about. We can achieve, and people can acclaim us, and it can mean nothing. Because, for instance, the pastor can make noise in the church, razzmatazz. The wife will look at it, this man is talking big here. He beats me at home. The son will say, the father will never see that he's probably sleeping with the housemaid and is blowing tough on the altar. Reflection. It is those kind of people that will write our biography, not the hagiography that people write about us. He was a good man. Oh, he was this one. Story. They never knew you. Who are you? What kind of man are you at home? Are you a terror? When you come, you park the car, everybody has disappeared from the sitting room. And then you get to the office, I'm the boss. The tigers do not need to proclaim his integrity. Live your life, give the best to the society. That is not to say that you are permissive. That is not to say that you are weak in discipline. Jesus Christ was not weak. He will speak to the thing. But he was compassionate. He looked, and our life, Paul said, follow me as I follow Jesus. Are we following Peter as Peter is following Jesus? The life of Jesus is so clear, it's so transparent for us to see and for us to follow. But what do we see? Distraction. We are like the wife of Lot, who looked back when she was to look forward. I think those will be my summary of the things we're talking about. And I think we need to go back and reflect on the things we have had today. It should not just be a topical thing. Oh, we talked about mental health today. Oh, thank God for them. What about tomorrow? What about next week? What effect will this have on your relationship at home? What effect will it have in your relationship in the workplace? What effect will it have in the church? The church is supposed to be a spiritual hospital where people come and they find succor, where people come, they find true love. Is our church like that today? If we fail, how do we want to draw disciples unto us? It's so important that we begin to reflect. And you see, little drops of water make the mighty ocean. If you change, if I change, if we get connected by these changes, we will form a large ocean of a newness that will take us in the place we believe. Let us be the change we desire. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. And is there anyone who has one thing that you must let Dr. Adedeji know? If you don't, great, he has spoken. But before we round up, do you have something like Ongbe Enikun? You must say it. If not, yeah. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, sir. Hallelujah. Unfortunately, though, you didn't allow Dr. Adedeji to answer my first question.
What is it? Let me answer.
Yeah, the first question is, if you have a spouse, you have a spouse in Nigeria and you have a spouse in America living separately, are they meant for each other, or what is it that God has really, how does it happen that God doesn't allow them to stay together? Because they said the family that pray together stay together. So if one spouse is in Nigeria and another one is and the husband and children are in America, are they really meant for each other, or they are not?
No, you see, thank you very much for the question. The answer lies in your hand. What exactly do you want in a family? Is it to go and live in Oyibo land and make money and then sacrifice the essence of family? Or, look, this is not something anybody can pontificate over. It's about choices and it's about priorities. I don't see it. If for initial that, oh, let these people settle and let's come and join. Yes, it means that if the husband stays here, the wife and children are abroad, there must be a dissonance. Maybe the husband is saying to himself, what am I going to do? Maybe she's the one that is working as a nurse who can earn a pay and I can work. And then the sense of self-importance then comes, why should I be living on my wife? You see, the thing that people don't understand is there are stages in life. When we are born, our parents will hold us, we totter on the ground, we follow them. A time comes, then we hold them by the hands to help them to walk. That's the way life is. It is better for a family to sit down and think together and come to the same priority considerations and say to ourselves, at this point, this is what we want. Okay, my wife and child. Why should a husband feel inferior or feel bad that the wife is making the money and he is not? When sometime before it was the man making the money and the wife was not. It's about mutuality. There's no ego trip when it comes to marriage. We better accept each other for one and allow. You see, I said to people, many men are suffering today because they deny their wife's self-expression. A woman cannot marry you and then subsume her decision, her life, her everything because she has married you. No, that's not true. The thing you must give allowance because each person wants to be self-expressed. This is who I am. This is what I did in my life. Not out of context of marriage, but within the context of marriage, so that she too can be proud. Yes, I'm the wife of so person, but this is who I am. Her only title cannot be Mrs. Whoever. And then she has nothing to say for herself. Remember, she went to school. Remember, she came from a home that had dreams about her. Honestly, I think we need to begin to look at the context of relationship. How do we forge relationship? Do we forge it because parents say you should marry who? Do people make choices and then what are the discussions they have when they are courting? We will live together bird for bird for, and then we say to ourselves, look, you do this, I do this. Look, let me give a personal example. It took us a long time to have a child. My wife and I, when we finally had the child, we said, I was still working and I told her she was doing her master's. Let's come to a decision. Suspend your master's so that 6 months, we can take care of this there. And one thing we agreed, our crèche must be within the estate where we live. So if one of us take her in the morning, one of us must bring her back. No school bus and all those things. And we agreed till she left the school. Even before she enters any school, we will take her there, we will discuss it. She must accept a consensus. We don't just say, come to your school, go to your school. No. That is when we begin to let them formulate a self-expression. When we deny them, they never will be able to speak when the time comes for them to speak. I'm sorry, I'm going again, but I'm talking about the context of family. So I don't subscribe. If it's not for a short time, for emergency purposes, families should not be separated. It should not be. It gives room to other dangerous things.
Thank you very much, sir. It leads me to what our mother has said about mental stability. It's really
Yes.
of mental stability in the way the man, especially when a man of God, when you need your wife beside you to console you when you go through a lot of problems in church and everything, and you come home, you don't have anybody to share with. And, you know, it makes you very mentally derailed. And sometimes, yes, thank you, sir. I appreciate you very much. May God give you long life and prosperity, sir.
Amen, sir. Thank you, sir. Right, sir.
One more question, Olufemi, quickly, and then my wife would come in to round us up. Olufemi, sir. Unmute and speak.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you for the opportunity and for what we have learned and heard today. Yeah, I just want us to look at issue broadly when we talk about marriage. Marriage, there's no win-win answer. Both husband and wife are at fault in many areas. It's a fact. If husband is at home, I'm talking about the general well-being of the children, and it's not bringing anything home. It's going to be a useless man at home. It doesn't matter, take the children to school, prepare food, do everything. If you are not bringing anything on the table, even the Bible doesn't even support that. That kind of husband is not worthy to be husband. And why am I saying this is this? Majority of home, even in America and Canada, I have a lot of friends, broken because of the way we look at things that, okay, me, I will go to work, you take care of this. And later, the issue become complex. They will now say, okay, why should I be the one to be at home? I've seen people that train their wife to the extent of, okay, I want you to be independent. They set them up. Along the line, what end them? And the problem when we are talking about somebody being in America, somebody being in Nigeria, everything depends on financial freedom. A lot of people will come to America because maybe one way, the way they come, they cannot, all of them cannot come. And the one that came, I'm not talking about maybe men or women, the one that come is agreement for them to say, okay, let us do it like this. Maybe you will say, I cannot get the paper. The one that is here is struggling to get his paper formalized. And it's a mutual something. He cannot travel home. The one home cannot travel here. What is going to happen? It's nobody's fault. It's that they just want everything is for the best of their children. They turn out at times that those people, when things come like that, I think evil or devil, how are we going to put it, or themselves, they now have some problem that put them apart. Initially, things will be going well. But later, because many people talk too much, they talk about their family to this and this. We continue to listen to people's advice. People that cannot even build their home. They will be the one advising the partner. Oh, do you know? I remember when I was in Nigeria with my wife, I always travel because I work in the bank and we do it. Some of our friends will say, do you even know what your husband is doing there? My wife will say, I know my husband before I even marry him. I know him very well and I know what they can do. You know, a lot of things, because it's somehow that when we just look at it, it's broader than the way we are looking at it in microscope. And the way one person will address this may not work for another person. What is working for Mr. A may not work for Mr. B. And what is against Mr. A may not against Mr. B. The only thing we just need is prayer, and we just open communication between the spouse. And that one is going to help us a lot. And another thing is financial freedom. The moment you put the burden of financing in your wife to do, you have already sell your battery. And it's going to that house is not going. It's going to be difficult for that house to stand.
My brother, thank you, Mr. Olufemi. You see, I'm very careful to speak. I think you are building all your discussion on the premises that is faulty. And I'll tell you why. Nobody is prescribing a perfect marriage. It doesn't exist. Nobody is prescribing that this is what you do in your home. You see, the mistake we all make, we leave other people's example wrong. What I begin to say now to people who do counseling for young people is, do you know that when people are courting, they don't talk about fundamental things that are basic to their future? Oh, I like the way you wear. I like your nails. Those are esoteric things that have nothing to do with the relationship. The thing, look, let me give you an example. Before I got married, my father gave me an apartment. So what I did a dining table with 4 chairs. So my father came to visit. He said, Dokun, look at your table, 4 chairs. I said, Ben, this out. Excuse me, he said, why? I said, this is for my wife, this is for me, and for 2 children. He said, 2 children? I said, Daddy, you had 6. You could do that at that time. I can't afford, with the thing that I'm saying then, I can't afford more than 1 or 2. And I knew from the beginning, in discussing with my wife, those were the issues. We began to discuss. Look, the other thing is, we discuss as if today will be like that till the end. It doesn't work like that. There'll be challenges. Do we prepare ourselves for the challenges that will come? No, we don't. One thing that I also learned, Chevron invite me to always talk during their pre-retirement training. You know what they do? They call spouses to the retirement. Because many times men carry themselves away from the understanding of their wives. And when something changes, you want your wife to understand. One thing she never knew, how will she suddenly understand? The thing is, when a family is discussing to travel, when you say the man traveled and with the paper that he can't bring it, that was wrong from the first beginning. When he's traveling and say, I'm going to make a way for you, yet he's going with documents that will not accommodate it. Whose fault is that? Let us be very careful about the assumptions we make. The thing is, do we sit down to look at the issues and decisions we take? Are they built on steps that are righteous? Are they built on steps that you can say can work? We believe in luck. Don't worry, when I get there, I get a job. Is there somebody putting you a job there? Does job go on the trees? And also, you said something financial. Our parents were not rich. Their weddings lasted almost till eternity. The thing is, I knew my parents growing. I never saw them once to argue. I saw them, things were difficult at one time for my father because he got retired prematurely from the bank. My mother shouldered it. And when we want to collect school fees, we would go to our dad, he would say, go to your mom. There was a mutuality. You see, that is what we're losing. That's what we're saying today by this discussion. Shall we return to how it used to be? A woman, look, I married my wife, ask my wife. My wife has a PhD. People say, how did you allow your wife to have a PhD? I said, my wife got married to me. She had a dream. She had a feeling of self-expression. She cannot subsume it under marriage. What will she then be? God forbid, if anything happens to me, who will she be? Anonymous. Then she'll be looking to this, looking to this. That we must be very careful. I don't care if you build your wife, if she makes an error, she meets someone and walks away, do what is right so that your mental health can be intact. And then you find that you are satisfied. You've done the best you can. Situations happen, you can't control it. Many of the things will happen. And let me also tell you, many of the wives we take abroad, when they get there, they see their system is different from Nigeria when you need to be doing obeisance to your husband. If you are not careful, you will mistreat them, they call police for you. So we can't blame them. The thing is there a mutual discussion of the things we do? Why is anybody this day, in this age, having more than 2 children? How does he want to take care of them? Look, come and see Nigeria today. You buy a bag of rice for 85,000. And then how do you want to manage? How much do you earn? Even if you earn $1 million a month, you buy a tin of meat for 30,000. How many times can you buy it? Excuse me, let us leave all this esotericism. Let us look at reality and concrete issues and then manage it in the way that is conducive to your family and the home you want to build, not the home that I built. what I did, other people may not do it yet have success. There's no brochure for what marriage. There's no brochure for growing a child or how to parent a child. There's no, it is you. And it is built upon the background of your own foundation. Where are you coming from? What kind of background did you have? We don't know that some of the background we carried from our parents are the things influencing us in our decisions we make. When a boy told my wife at age 10, when his classmates were running away from him in school. So my wife said, why are they running? He said, I'm showing them that I'm the man. And my wife said, where did you learn that? I said, I learned it from my father who beats my mom and said the woman must not talk. 10-year-old. So when he marries at 22 and he beats his wife, they'll be wondering how. He learned it. Excuse me, I'm not an expert. I don't have all the answers. But God tutored me through certain situations. And when he brought me to the ministry that I was managing to rehab drug addicts, I learned so much about the dichotomy between the life we live and live at home and at work. And that is why we lose our children to drugs and the vices we see on the street. We blame the youth. We say they are terrible. I ask people, did they come from heaven? They didn't drop from heaven. They came out of us. They are part of us. They see what we do. A father is in Ogboni. You don't want your child to join a year. So I don't understand you. Because what he sees is what then he practices. And then he says his Ogboni is not bad and he knows it's not good. Why is a year bad? He then justifies it. How can you? Parents must be the primary role models for their children, or else they go and pick it outside. Ask a Nigerian child today, the role model is all this Davido, all these people who do all kinds of things. That cannot be the way we want to bring up children. That cannot be the way of the future. I'm asking us today, please. I don't have the answers, but if we ask God to help us get the answers by our own reflection and inflection, and ask, where did I go wrong? You know, many parents cannot say sorry to their children. They think because they are their parents, you are wrong. My daughter had warned me one day. I hit her on the backside. I said, Daddy. She looked and said, Daddy, never do that again. I said, why? He said, because if you do it, I think it's right. Everybody will be hitting my bonbon. I learned. She was just about 15 or 14. And I said, sorry. And since that day, I have never done it. She has her own singularity. She has an identity she wants to keep, and I must help her to keep. I cannot abuse it and pretend I will not be abused outside. Excuse me, today calls for reflection. Let us all listen to these things we have had and go back and begin to reflect. God will help us.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And I think we all have enough food for thought. And let's go reflect. As we said before, May 18, by God's grace, is our next time to meet. And on this note, I want to say thank you for everyone. And we would, again, you found your voice. As Doctor has said, please help others to also find their voice. And let's take care of one another. And that's how we can grow together.
Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you for your contributions. This is a practical, workable solution-based forum. So we appreciate your life experiences and such contributions. Thank you most of all to our lead speaker, Dr. Dokun Adedeji. You have been much of a blessing, sir. And we do appreciate you. Like we said, we'll be looking forward to another robust meeting with you and your guests. Please reach out to us if you had troubles getting your guest in this particular time so that we can share with you ways to make it better for the next time. We want as many as can benefit to be a part of this. We wish you have a wonderful weekend and blessings to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.